Welcome to Season 2 of Alternative Living Chats. This podcast is where I speak to like-minded people who have decided to give up on living in the standard house and found an alternative lifestyle. If you would like to be a guest, please drop me a message. All my contact details are in the podcast information. Also, please remember to leave a review as this helps other people find us. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Hello and welcome to this week's podcast on Alternative Living Chat. Today I had the pleasure in chatting to Shonda Sinclair, who lives a nomadic lifestyle. I hope you enjoy the podcast and I look forward to reading the comments, and if you fancy joining me on for a conversation, please don't forget to drop me an email or comment on our social media. Thank you. Hi and welcome, Shonda, to the podcast. So would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Good morning. Well, good afternoon. My name is Shonda. I go by Shonda Sinclair, and I am a nomad, a digital nomad, and writer.
Wonderful. And you've just been saying you're based in, you're in Oregon, United States at the moment. So how long have you been doing it before?
Sorry, Pacific Northwest.
So how long have you been a nomad?
Just going on 2 years. Just the first of the summer, mid-June, and we went nomadic, and we've traveled 14 states and 2 winters in Arizona now, and we've seen all kinds of really great things.
That's fantastic. And so just tell us a bit more about yourself and, why did you decide to take this type of lifestyle?
Well, we were at the point where we could finally do that. Our youngest child was an adult and wanted to move out and be with roommates. And so we didn't have to be at home anymore with children. And we're midlife time where we can do a little bit of career change and reinvent a little bit. And so that was the plan, do a little reinvention.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And so what do you do for work these days?
I have been a paralegal document preparer for 16 years or so. And so I was able to just take that digital, and I still do the same thing that I was doing. I just do it from remote now. And I think, all the events of the last few years really helped with that. I was remote in 2009 for almost a year. Yeah. And it didn't work out as well. The employers at that time weren't as keen on it. And now everybody realizes that you can be productive and do that. So it's worked out great.
That's fantastic. And I agree with you, yeah, because since obviously all the hassle we had in 2020, I think employers have become more trustworthy of the employees. So allowing more and more people to be able to work away from the office, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And what I actually did is I just went independent as far as I severed employment, and I'm self-employed. So I took on the same people I worked for as contract employers.
Yeah.
So I could add additional employers, additional contracts when I need to.
That's a brilliant idea. Yeah, that's really good. And so do you set yourself how often you want to work, or does it change on a regular basis?
Ideally, I would, but I ended up I pretty much almost still do a full-time work week. I am able to adjust the hours. If I want to go do something on a day during the day, then we just adjust the hours and I work in the evening instead of, morning.
Yeah.
And I carved out afternoons off on Fridays. So what we typically were doing is Friday afternoon would be the driving day. And then we would be able to explore the new place that we're going on the weekend. And then we could decide, usually we would stay a week or 2, sometimes 3 or 4 in one place. And so that's been really great because I can work during the weekday, I can explore during the day, work at night, and we can drive and get settled on weekends.
That's fantastic. And what type of places do you stay if you're staying for, like you're saying, a week, 2 weeks? Do you stay in like a park, or, where do you actually?
Well, we've done a lot of different things. We've been really blessed enough to have some private land and people that would host us for periods of time. And in Arizona, you can go and stay on what is called Bureau of Land Management, BLM land. And you can stay 14 days in any one spot. And then you have to move 25 miles and you stay another 14 days at another spot. And you can do that all year round. You can do that forever. As long as you're cleaning up after yourself and continuing to move every 14 days. That was really nice. And then there's also something called long-term vehicle access. And you can purchase a permit to stay on BLM land for 7 months, continuous, without having to move every 14 days.
Oh, that's handy. That's really, really good. So you can explore the places longer, can't you? Which is much, much better sometimes, if not having to move on a days basis, which is fantastic. So what would you say are the best bits that living the life that you've now decided to live?
Well, for me, it's the freedom. It does not come without its difficulties. People think you see the Instagram photos and you see, the beauty, and you're parked and you open your back doors and you're looking at the ocean, or you're looking at, one of the beautiful national parks, mountains, and those are great. You do have those moments, but those are not every day, especially if you are working as a digital nomad. You have to stay in an area where you have a connection to the internet. I cannot go into the deepest areas of a national forest on weekdays, on work days.
That must be, you've got to obviously be able to carry on working, haven't you?
Yeah, but the freedom to go where we wanted to go. We got to see, we got to meet all kinds of really interesting people. There was we went to 4 of the Laura Ingalls Wilder home sites. She's a author of the Little House books, and it was not planned. That's one of the nicest things. It kind of just fell into place. You don't have to plan. You can say, I'd like to be in this general area, and then you get the opportunity to explore what's there in ways that you never would when you're planning a 1 week a year vacation.
Yeah, brilliant. And so tell us a bit more about your accommodation. What do you drive around in, and how many rooms, and well, not rooms, but what's the setup like?
We have a camper van. It's self-built, and it is a low top, which if I were going to do it again, I would really like to do a high top van, but the cost of that was prohibitive at the time, and we just really wanted to, we decided if we were going to wait to afford a Class A motorhome, it was not going to happen. So we did what we could, and it's not bad. It was a 2015, so it's not very old, and it had very low miles, and we built it out, and then we also bought a small 13-foot vintage travel trailer that we tow with us, and so that has all the amenities that we need as well.
Brilliant. And so you did did you do it over a period of time? How did you do the self-build?
Well, we didn't have any carpentry skills per se, and we didn't have the tools at the time. So we went and did a lot of, YouTube videos and consulted some people that we know who do build things, and just all the tools we needed. And we just took a month, and we didn't do, like I said, the super duper Instagram build, but it's functional. We built our own bed, and we built our own little area for, bathroom area. And we have a bird with storage, and we built a shelf that is removable so that we can use it for our stove when we need to convert, to kitchen. But mostly we do our cooking outside when we're traveling, or in the travel trailer. The travel trailer has a kitchen, so we don't have to use the van for that.
Fantastic. That's ideal, isn't it? When you've got like an extra room on top, which is brilliant.
Well, we kind of joke that we pull our kitchen behind us, because really what we mostly use it for is kitchen when we're traveling.
That sounds like a really good plan. And so, what if somebody was thinking of doing? What advice could you give somebody that's thinking of having this new lifestyle?
My husband would probably say don't. He likes it. He's enjoyed it, but he's not as into it as I am.
Right.
I would say, you really have to do your homework first, and you really have to. So a lot of people are jumping into it, without really knowing if they will like it. And there is definitely a psychology to it. You have to know what you're planning. You really have to have in mind what your goals are. And you have to understand that if you keep yourself a home base, you're going to need mentally to be on board with doing this for a period of time, because it gets hard. And people say, oh, I wish I hadn't done it. Or, oh, it's very physically demanding. You have to be physically fit. You have to know how to camp. If you've never camped, or if you've never stayed in a tent, or you've never roughed it, as people say, you definitely need to try that first. Give it a few weekends, or give it 2 full weeks. Go in the conveyance that you're thinking about using and try it for a week or 2 weeks before you jump in with feet and both hands.
That sounds really good advice. And how long are you planning on doing this for? Have you got a time, or are you just doing it until you've had enough?
Timeline is kind of open-ended at this point. We did purchase a little piece of property in the Midwest, and so if we ever want to go and settle there and stay on that land, we have it. But we have family out on the West Coast of the United States, and we had hoped some of them would come along with us and relocate to the Midwest, and we could kind of all be near each other, and that didn't quite work out. So we are in limbo on that, but I'm, dedicated to just wait and see. Back to school, and I've been writing and publishing. I'm looking at kind of seeing how it all works out. I'm enjoying it at the moment.
That's brilliant. And so what books are you writing at the moment?
Well, I have published an article in Rootless Living magazine, and that was about our travel to De Smet, South Dakota, to one of the Laura Ingalls Wilder homesteads. And I am working on a fiction novel. It would be a debut novel. I haven't done a novel yet. Yeah. My new degree is in creative writing. I've always wanted to write. I've always written things, but publishing is a very difficult animal to there's so many things you have to do. You have to wear so many hats. But I'm working on that. It's a fictional story, ironically, about a woman who backpacks and goes on a trip on foot, and an open-ended trip that she goes on, and then it's all about what happens to her. And I use, of course, a lot of the things that I've encountered along the way to into that story.
Really interesting. That'll be good. And the article that you've is that able? Yeah. Do you have a link for that so we can put it into the podcast so people can have a look and have a read of it?
I can. It's rootlessliving.com, and I'll email it to you.
Yeah.
Then my issue is the April-May 2023 issue, and I'm on page 60. And it's my first publication that is not blog or something that I didn't have to get approval from the publisher for. So it's my first accepted article from a publisher, which was really exciting.
Definitely, that's really exciting. And I'll put the link in the podcast notes, which will be so anybody can click onto there and have a look as well. And do you do other social media as well, Shonda? Or
I do. I have Instagram. I'm at _Shonda Sinclair. On Twitter, I am at _Shonda Sinclair. Facebook, Sinclair. Actually, just turned my Facebook page into a professional page so that it's public and people can come and follow what I'm doing. And I am a cast host on Monday mornings on theoldmanspodcast.com. And it's a Podbean app, Podbean, to produce it, but you don't have to have the Podbean app to listen. If you want to hear the live show, it's actually a live show every morning, weekdays, 7 a.m. Pacific time, only on Mondays.
Yeah.
7 to 8:30, and people can listen live. And for that, you do have to have the Podbean app. But if you just want to download, you can find it on all the places that podcasts are and also on theoldmanspodcast.com. And we do author interviews. We do, it's really framed around, like a morning chit chat show. It's, I don't know if did you guys have on radio years past when the morning jockeys would be just talking? and you could start your morning listening to people doing a chat on the radio.
I don't know. I've not come across that because it's usually just somebody talking and then music. But I'm sure probably Radio 4. We may have done, but that sounds. I'm going to tune in because that sounds quite interesting. I like things like that.
And it's 3 p.m. your time, I think. Yeah. So that's a nice time of day. You know, and listen to us. And so fashioned around, we have the idea that it's around the kitchen table, you know, the virtual kitchen table, and we just have a talk, and we try to avoid the divisive topics of the day. We try to avoid the crummy stuff that's actually happening in the world so that we can just focus on the good things and the positive things. We talk about, you know, what's happening in your day, what's happening in gardening, what's happening in publishing. We do some educational things. We do some cultural things. And we talked to an Irish kid, 11-year-old Logan Kelly. He's going to be a shining star in the world. It's musicians. He reviews bands. He reviews, he has a Twitter and he has a YouTube, and, he's just a delightful kid. Definitely going places.
Oh, that was good. Definitely, worth, getting into. And again, if you send me all the links, I can put those, into the notes for the podcast so anybody else can join in as well.
Yeah.
That sounds perfect. Anything else you want to share with our listeners, Shonda?
You know, I always what we do on our podcast when we finish up is we leave with a positive thought. Yeah. And so I just want to encourage people, if you are thinking about alternative lifestyle or taking on the travel lifestyle, part-time or full-time, if you think it is right for you, if you think it is something you will enjoy, just do it. You know, I was listening to another podcast yesterday, and he was saying, people are saying why I quit van life and how van life is horrible or how the travel life is horrible. And it can be, it has its difficulties, but people think that they failed at it when they decide that it no longer works for them. And it's not a failure. If you try it and it didn't work for you, you had an experience in life that just didn't happen to work out for you. That happens all the time in all the different choices that we make. So just jump out there and do it afraid, because it is a scary thing. I'm afraid some of the time. I was really afraid before we did it, and it'll grip you, you know, like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? But they remember, I got to go 14 states and I met these people that I would have never seen in my lifetime. I've been places I would have never gotten to go. And that is not a failure. If I decide tomorrow that I'm finished doing it, finished. But I didn't fail. I got to explore, enjoy, adventure, being really courageous. So anybody who's out there thinking about it, you should get your perspective right and do your research. People, you know, I do coaching for who wants to have, you know, an hour of coaching if they're thinking about getting ready to do this. I offer that by Zoom. So, you know, for an hourly rate, but I think it's a modest hourly rate. And, you know, 1 hour to talk about all the specifics and some of the pitfalls and some of the things we didn't know before we got started. So think about it. Just do it. Jump in, do it. And, stay positive out there.
I completely agree with you. It's the same as we've done with living on a boat. It's something we've decided, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But, we're having an amazing time just checking to see if we think it'll work.
Oh, that's another book that I'm working on with someone who lives on a boat. We're doing a letter series back and forth, their cat, my dog. And, I'm so busy lately that I haven't done my part. It's in my court at the moment, but, we're hoping that we'll be able to publish that sometime and talk about the adventures from the perspective of their cat and my dog.
That sounds, I must admit, I've written 4 books now about, it's the adventures of Mexi, the boat dog. It's my dog having adventures on the boat.
Yeah. Well, you know, I thought we drag these around with us and they get to do things we are doing. And so you wonder, what do they think? And great. They didn't really, they are as long as they're with us, and they didn't have any adjustment issues at all. So that's been great.
Well, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you, and really interesting. And I'm just pleased that you're the new lifestyle. And thanks for joining me on the podcast.
I feel like I didn't really even touch the surface of specifics, and I apologize if I didn't get to really drill down into some of the specifics. But anybody who wants to know can follow those of us who do it and get those specifics along the way.
That's why I say all the links and everything will be in the podcast notes, and so that you can contact Shonda if you want to know any more details.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I enjoyed today's podcast, and thank you very much for listening. Let everybody know about the podcast so we can grow the Alternative Living Chats community. If you'd like to join me, drop me a message. And so all the details of today's guests will be in the information of this podcast. Thank you.